Hey there, scientists. Caroline here. Imagine this. It's 1901 in Beaumont, Texas, and workers at Spindletop Hill are drilling deep into the earth. Suddenly, a massive geyser of oil erupts, shooting over 150 feet into the sky. For 9 days, oil pours from the well at an astonishing rate of 100,000 barrels a day. The scene was chaotic, thrilling, and incredibly profitable, with over 17 million barrels of oil produced in its first year. People called it black gold for a reason. It transformed economies, industries, and lives, giving rise to global oil giants like Texaco and Exxon. But why is oil, or any fossil fuel, so valuable? What makes these substances so crucial to modern life? And how did they form in the first place? To understand that, we need to dig deeper into what fossil fuels really are. Ready, scientists? Let's get started. In our last lesson, we talked about how energy can take on different forms, such as heat, electricity, and stored energy. Fuel is a form of stored energy we can burn to generate heat or power. Fossil fuels are a type of fuel with a very particular origin story. Scientists, can you guess where fossil fuels come from? If you guessed fossils, you're on the right track. Fossil fuels are formed from the remains of ancient plants and microorganisms that lived millions of years ago. Over time, these remains were buried under layers of sediment and transformed by heat and pressure into energy-rich substances. There are three main kinds: coal, oil, and natural gas, and each has its own unique origin and characteristics. Coal is formed from plant material in ancient swamps. It's a solid fuel that contains stored energy from the sun, absorbed by those plants millions of years ago. Oil comes from tiny plankton and sea organisms that lived in ancient oceans. Over millions of years, these remains were compressed into liquid fuel beneath layers of rock. Natural gas often forms alongside oil from similar sea organisms, but it's a gas instead of a liquid. Essentially, fossil fuels are like an ancient treasure trove of stored energy buried deep in the earth. But this stored energy doesn't always advertise itself, like the 150-foot geyser at the Spindletop oil field. So how do humans actually extract these energy sources? And once we do, how do we use them? Let's take a closer look at each type of fossil fuel, starting with coal. Since coal is a solid material, it is extracted by mining. This can involve digging large open pits or digging tunnels deep into the earth where coal deposits are located. Once collected, it's burned in power plants to generate electricity, and it's also burned by individuals for heating and cooking. Since oil is a liquid, it's obtained a little differently. Extracting oil involves drilling into the ground or ocean floor, breaking through rock layers to reach the buried oil. Then the oil is extracted by pumping or suctioning the oil to the surface, where it is commonly transported using pipelines. The most common use for oil is refining it into products like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel to power engines such as those in cars and airplanes. The process for extracting natural gas is similar to oil. We still have to break through layers of rock to release the gas trapped in the earth. Then we trap it, compressing the gas into pipelines for transport. Natural gas is commonly burned to generate electricity, heat homes, and cook food. Okay, so fossil fuels definitely play a large role in our lives. But fossil fuels aren't the only source of energy available to us. So what are the costs and benefits of using them? Before we dig in, scientists, what do you think are some of the costs and benefits of using fossil fuels? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. Let's start with the benefits. There's a good reason the Spindletop oil field in Texas was so valuable when it was discovered. Historically, fossil fuels have been absolutely essential for industrialization, transportation, and modern conveniences. Without fossil fuels, the Industrial Revolution couldn't have taken place, and we wouldn't have innovations such as cars, automated factories, and home appliances. For hundreds of years, energy technology has been built with fossil fuels in mind, from coal-burning power plants to gas-powered engines. This has entrenched fossil fuels as a reliable and powerful energy source that is still dominant today. Currently, fossil fuels supply an astounding 80% of the world's energy. With this in mind, what do you think might happen if we immediately stopped using fossil fuels altogether? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. If we suddenly stopped using them, we wouldn't have nearly enough energy to power all of our modern conveniences. In the short term, life as we know it simply wouldn't be possible. Keeping the energy supply flowing is a pretty huge benefit of continuing to use fossil fuels. But what are the costs? Well, let's start with the obvious. Fossil fuels are a non-renewable energy source, meaning that they will eventually run out. According to the EIA, the world's known oil supply is only expected to meet energy demands through around 2050. Our window for relying on fossil fuels is beginning to close. We also have to consider environmental costs, such as land destruction, water pollution, and air pollution. Coal mining and drilling disrupt landscapes, leading to habitat loss and soil erosion. Additionally, oil spills and runoff from mining can contaminate rivers, oceans, and other water sources, impacting drinking water and harming wildlife and ecosystems. And of course, burning fossil fuels has costs as well. This practice causes air pollution, releasing substances like greenhouse gases, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter, contributing to climate change, smog, and respiratory health issues. Okay, so there seem to be some pretty big costs and benefits when it comes to fossil fuels. Do you think the benefits of fossil fuels are mostly economic, environmental, or social? Pause and write your thoughts in your guided notes. Fossil fuels provide a huge economic benefit. By keeping the energy flowing, fossil fuels power jobs, transportation, trade, you name it. However, since fossil fuels will eventually run out, this benefit is short-term. Meanwhile, how would you categorize the costs of fossil fuels? You probably said environmental and maybe social as well. Environmental damage or the depletion of energy sources could impact the quality of life for future generations. In other words, the costs of fossil fuels are typically long-term. This highlights an important challenge that we face today. How do we best balance the short-term benefits of fossil fuels with the long-term costs? In the lesson PDF, you'll have the opportunity to explore this challenge further and reflect on possible solutions. And with that, we've wrapped up our lesson on fossil fuels. We've learned that fossil fuels are formed from the remains of plants and tiny organisms that lived millions of years ago. The main types are coal, oil, and natural gas, which are burned to generate electricity in power plants and power engines in cars, trains, and other vehicles or machines. The benefits of burning fossil fuels are typically short-term economic benefits, while the costs are typically long-term environmental and social costs. Balancing these costs and benefits is one of the largest challenges that humans and governments face as we navigate our use of energy resources in the future. But the good news? Fossil fuels aren't the only type of energy source available. In our next lesson, we'll take a closer look at renewable energy sources. Until then, I'm Caroline, and remember, energy is an awesome tool, and the more responsibly we use it, the more awesome it can be. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time. Hey, hey.